Hello.
Well, good afternoon. Glad to be back with you guys live. So if you're just tuning in and join us, this is the Sheriff Live. I'm Walton County, Florida, Sheriff Mike Adkinson, along with our trusty public information staff, Miss Corey DeBridnia and Miss Lindsay Darby. And this is our chance to meet with my bosses, the citizens of Walton County, and this is the Sheriff Live. So we take your questions, whatever format you happen to be listening on, which is, what are we on, Corey?
We're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook.
Twitter. So we're on three of them. So anyway, we are glad to be back. We've been off about a month, around the Christmas break or so. So we took a little time, and a lot of stuff's been going on. So getting ready for a big year. I hope everybody had a great Christmas, and just really want to get caught up a little bit on some of the stuff happening. And if you have questions, obviously shoot them in. As always, I don't see your questions, so Lindsay or Corey have to read it and let me know, and we'll try and answer it. We don't guarantee answers that I know the answer. We guarantee we'll get you an answer. We also don't guarantee that you like the answers. That's a whole separate issue, right? So anyway, we have a list of things we kind of want to go over, but as always, we'll answer anything you guys want. If you're watching and you're not from Walton County, Florida, Walton County runs from the Alabama line to the Gulf of Mexico. So we're about 65 miles north and south. And we are halfway between Pensacola and Tallahassee in the Florida Panhandle. I think it's the most wonderful place on earth. So, I always tell people, I'm actually not joking about this. I can live anywhere I want. I choose to live here. So I choose to raise my children here. This is home, and we think it's a pretty good place. So with that, let's talk about what we've missed over the last month. So, ladies, we've got some things, and then obviously any questions we'll go with.
Yeah.
And I messed up and didn't get the regular coffee. I got the iced cold brew. Could be this podcast could go either way. Could be off the rails in just a hot second.
Got the Irish cream cold brew going.
A little tart.
So we've had a couple things go on since Christmas.
Right.
During Christmas, we had a pretty cool donation.
Yeah.
From someone that came into your office.
Yeah. So listen, I'm going to respect her wishes and not say her name, but I'll just tell you, when you know that you're in a great community, is when somebody comes in and says, "Look, Sheriff, I want to make Christmas better for some folks," and we had a local resident, from Freeport that has done a lot already in the charity community here in South Walton, overseeing some races and some things for charity events, and just really out of the goodness of her heart, she said, "Look, here's $15,000, and I want to help make some people's Christmases better." And she trusted us, and we said, "We're going to honor your wishes." And we went out, and over the course of about a week, right before Christmas, had this opportunity to try and help some people's Christmases. And I'll tell you, as much as that helped some people, the blessing I think it gave our staff, our deputies, and our firefighters, the folks that it was so nice to be able to do something so good like that. It really, I got
to tell you, I think the deputies enjoyed that more than the people.
Oh, I think the deputies, and I tell you, I think for me, again, I've been doing this over 30 years now. It reaffirmed why this is a great place to live for me. It's not about the money. I wish I could tell you what a generous heart this lady came to us with, and just really no parameters other than, she just kind of said, "Hey, I just want to make a difference in people's lives." And a lot of people say that, and they don't do a whole lot. So when you see somebody come in there and really do it out of the goodness of their heart, it means a lot. And, like I said, I actually would love to say her name, but there's a wonderful verse in the Bible that says, not let not your right hand know what your left hand is doing. So we'll honor that. But I'm very grateful to her, and I think it made a difference to a lot of people's lives. I can tell you, I had the opportunity to give some of it out myself, so it was a fun thing. But it did make a difference, and it helped a lot of people at Christmas. So cool. A thank you to you.
Yeah, and just to see, we put out a short video of some of the interactions, and they're awesome. So cool. So if you haven't seen that video yet, it's on our Instagram, it's on our Facebook. I definitely recommend. You want to smile, you want a good chuckle, go watch it. Some of the people's reactions were precious.
And I would just tell you, just want to stay with what kind of a community you're at here. Christmas Eve, I got out. My daughter called me and said, "Hey, look, Daddy, some people are broke down at the intersection of a light close to where we live, and said, come change their tire." And I was like, okay, but well, that's your job. I said, okay. So I go there and trying to change the tire, but there was a gentleman stopped there with waste disposal services here, and on his own, out there trying to help change this tire. And listen, that is kind of my job, so I don't mind. But I thought, what a unique community. So here's this guy, and it was funny because the gentleman that they were changing their tire, who were driving in from New York, and they tried to give him money, he wouldn't take it. Mm-hmm. So he's back working in this. He's got his waste disposal services truck. I actually called the owner, Chuck Wilder, and those folks said, "Look, I just want you to know that this guy working for you, what kind of good person he is. He took the time to stop and help these people." And I don't know. I think that's what makes you Walton County a unique place to be.
Yeah. And I bet the people from New York were not expecting that.
No, they were not. They couldn't believe they would take money. And it was funny. They kept trying to give me money. I was like, no, trust me. This is what we do. This is not. Yeah. We're not taking money. So
being from up north, you don't see that very often.
Yeah.
We've had a couple things, exciting things, go on since then. Okay. Not the least of which we announced that we're trying to get an Air Methods helicopter base here.
Sure. So Walton Air Rescue, we are going to try, and we're not going to try. We're going to have an air ambulance back here in Walton County. It's a partnership, one of only 4 governmental agencies in the nation that'll partner with an air medical services. And listen, the truth of the matter is, without an emergency room, it's even more critical, right? I mean, it's seconds and minutes. Minutes matter. We're excited to be able to do that and help offer that service. Right now, as I understand it, we're going to try and working with the city of Defeniak Springs, put that out at the airport there, and hopefully we're going to be up and running, in the next couple of months. And I think this can make a difference in people's life. And one of the things I love about this company, Air Methods, is they went out of their way to say, look, we're going to find out how to make this in network, so people don't get $20,000 bills, so that's covered by your insurance. That's a big deal. It's a big deal, and for the citizens, particularly in Walton County, it's going to be this opportunity that, God forbid that you need it, but boy, what an asset to have
when you do.
Yeah, when you do, and listen, just truthfully, we had some people say, well, why are you wasting your time with that? Why don't you get us an emergency room? And listen, at the end of the day, I'm the sheriff. I do the best I can with what I have.
We can't pave roads. We'd love to. But we can't do it.
Don't pave roads. But I can either say, well, I can do nothing, or I can try and do the best I can for the people that we serve. And so we're going to do that. And, listen, if it was in my power to get you an emergency room, you would already have it.
Yeah.
So
a couple things. Matthew Jonas says, okay. Walton County Sheriff's, good luck out there. Chrismy Bishop says she's watching. Denise Barnett says hello.
Cool.
Tiffany Hall says, I could really use some help getting a speed bump out in front of my home. Is there any way you all can help me with that? Speaking of paving roads.
Yeah, so first of all, you got to let us know where that's at. So if you'll email po@waltonso.org, am I right?
Yes.
So like in 7 years, that's the first time I've ever got that right. Yes. So if you'll email us, let us know your road address. We will get it to Walton County Public Works. They're actually the ones, assuming it's a county road, they're the one that handles that, but we'll try and facilitate that. We try very hard when you ask us a question to, even if it's not us, to get it to the right people. So yeah, we'll see if we can help you with that.
Awesome. And then Jerome says, at Seascape, you have a great department. And then Regina Bishop, she says, I have a question. Oops, sorry, I hit my microphone. I have a question about the Sunset Lane drug bust, where according to the report, a CI made 3 controlled buys from a young man, yet he was arrested 1 month after the raid, but was not charged with selling drugs. Doesn't the sheriff's office make the charges upon arrest that the state then prosecutes?
I'm not 100% sure I know what the question she's asking is.
Okay.
So I apologize. I'm not 100%. What is the question? I guess.
I think she's asking.
Because I can't read it, so I'm.
Yeah. In this Sunset Lane drug bust arrest, right? Mm-hmm. She's saying that a CI made controlled buys, but when the raid was completed, when we picked up people on warrants, he was not arrested for drugs.
Okay.
What she's asking is, does the sheriff's office make the charges upon arrest and then the state then prosecutes? I know you've said in the past that sometimes we make arrests based on what the charge that we have, and the state could up those charges,
or mitigate them up or down, depending on where they are.
Yes.
And no, they're not always. If they are arrested at that time, they're charged at that time, right? So if there was a change to the charges, that the state's attorney makes those decisions, not us. If we didn't make an arrest, we may made a certain amount of time to actually make the arrest and add the charges. I think she's saying that an arrest was made and there was different charges later, which is not uncommon. That happens fairly regularly. Not pretty common.
And not to get too far into like vice narcotics world, but these investigations take a ton of time and effort. They don't just kind of happen overnight. There are the quote unquote one-off arrests where we pull somebody over, they may have drugs on them. But overall, our drug investigation can take months.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully we answered that question. I think that's what.
Yeah, Regina, let us know if we were on track, hot or cold. Robin Harris, each one of you are precious in Jesus' name. She's talking about the Christmas stuff. Right. And then Ollie Walker, always appreciative that you have this live chat. Love the personal communicative connection to the community. Walter Moss, thanks for all you do. Going down here, Walter Moss says, air ambulance is so incredible, so much needed. Thank you, because it's going to save lives, no doubt.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely going to save lives. So it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. Tiffany Hall is following up on her speed bump thing, and I don't know enough about this. First one to admit it. She said, I spoke to Miss Kim over at Public Works, and she said that she needed 3 complaints to the sheriff's office before they would install a speed bump. I don't know exactly what their pathway is, but we can certainly track and see how many complaints you've had out there, and then make sure that list is given to her. So yeah, we can take a look at that.
Walton County School District says thanks for all you do. Thank you guys for all you do.
We love those folks, Walton County School District.
And then Stephanie King says, what do y'all know about? I still can't say y'all without.
I know.
I just can't. It doesn't flow.
The Rhode Island
in me just doesn't like it. The 2 Utes. What do you all know about the Walton County Schools security check earlier today?
So the short answer, the short version of that is that there was an investigation involving something out of state, basically. And at the end of the day, they wanted to make sure that what looked like for lack of a better way of putting it, a hoax sent out of state might have been, the hoaxer might have been here. So we wanted to be sure that there was no issue. So just everything with it, we try to do is kind of with an abundance of caution. So
yeah. Ollie Walker, 2 questions. Are there any plans to add a left turn traffic light to the Watersound Origins entrance?
I had to think about that just for a second.
Traffic light.
I will tell you, I don't know that there is.
I know there's a left turn.
But there probably should be. There probably should. Well, up on 90, I'm assuming he's talking about on the 98 side. I don't know about from that's a private road. So just to be clear, that road
Watersound Origins is a private road.
Yeah, it's a private road, and that's really up to the company.
Yeah, he said there seems to be many accidents at that entrance. You are correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, any proactive plans on how to minimize the unsupervised teen groups coming for spring break that seem to have become larger, more unruly, and more intimidating in recent years? So,
every year, this is kind of this time of year. In fact, we're meeting this week talking about how to manage spring break and how to manage kids. And every year is kind of a little bit different challenge. One year it's in Miramar, one year we have in Seaside, one Rosemary. So we're always trying to look and say, and anticipate, what's coming, what are going to be our issues. Right now, we plan on it being, our problems being these under 18 juveniles, and everything is kind of planning toward that. If we get there and then all of a sudden it's the 20-year-old crowd and it's at Miramar, we'll have to adjust and do that. But otherwise, our plan this year is we have a lot of people on bicycles, a lot of people on golf carts and on foot, and then to be proactive in trying to deal with these little heathens where appropriate. One of the things we see also is that a lot of the behavior is not criminal. People don't like it. These kids screaming and running and yelling. That's always an issue, right? Then you have those that break entrances to walkways or damage mailboxes. Just little criminal mischief, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so we take a proactive to those. We're going to charge those. We'll charge those kids and deal with it. But I think right now our plan is to be really heavy Seaside through Rosemary. We think that's where it's going to be our busiest area. And again, don't confuse busy with criminal, because we have to watch that and we have to be fair in the way we kind of manage it. But got a lot of people planning on working. A lot of foot patrol, a lot of bike, a lot of people, a lot of presence down there.
And we have this conversation often. Like, it's not unlawful, but it's awful, or like they're disrespectful, but that's not necessarily against the law.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and we see that a lot, where a lot of running and screaming, and people say, listen, there's a big group of kids and they're running and screaming. True, but it's not necessarily illegal. For us, I'll just tell you very bluntly, it's easy to have these kids in one place and deal with them than it is to scatter them in different places. So we like to try and be contained.
That in itself can cause actual crime, because then we're like spreading them out into the residential communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're working on that now. We're just getting prepared for that as we move forward.
Carlos Morales, what are you guys going to do about the scammers going around in town selling fake jewelry? I have not heard that. Carlos, that's the first time we've heard that. But if you'll call a deputy, when you see them out there, or you know somebody, if you'll call, we'll send a deputy out there. Sure. Or if it's a city, we'll send up the police department and have somebody make contact, and let's identify who they are. That happens every once in a while, so we need to. Purses.
But call them call us when you see them, and either us or the police department will get out there and see if we can identify who these folks are.
Okay, and then Tiffany Hall says, every time I try to call the sheriff's office to file a complaint about speeding on my road, I get transferred to the city.
So what you need to tell them, because you're probably in the city limits, that I'm assuming, if you prefer a deputy sheriff and that's what you want, say I do not want to be transferred. If you'll tell them that, they'll say no. Just say, hey, I want a deputy's response. No, I just be very specific. Say I want a deputy sheriff.
Yeah.
Because typically, if it's inside that jurisdiction, they're always going to transfer you to the city unless you specifically say, I want a deputy sheriff, not the PD. If you say that, then you'll get a deputy sheriff.
Great. Terry Cook.
Okay.
She's got a scenario, and she wants to know your opinion. There's a great debate in the community about how to turn when there's a left-hand lane. As an example, let's use Breaker Street and Watersound Origins. If you're turning left on 98 from Breakers, you stay in the lane you're in. If you're turning left on Breakers from 98, you stay in the lane you're in. Almost everyone wants to pull out and do not understand this rule. Many wrecks are caused because of this. Right. Can you put arrows to indicate that people stay in their lane? I hope. So obviously,
it's you got to turn. The short answer to that is you have to turn the closest available lane, right? I mean that's what the law says. I'll refer to kind of the previous one. If it's the arrows, those are private roadways. So yes, Watersound Origins, that community, or the St. Joe Company can elect to put those turn arrows. Absolutely, they can do that. And that's probably not a bad idea. If you're up on 98, that's a state roadway, because Highway 98 is a state road. So what we'll do is I'll tell you what, we'll send an email and ask whether or not we can, if somebody from USDOT, because if you're asking for it to be on 98, if they can do that, because they have a whole set of rules, and quite frankly, they don't even talk to us about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can send an email and try and figure out what the answer to that is.
Yeah.
That may be something you need to ask your homeowners association too. If you're in Watersound Origins, just ask them to do that as well too, because those are both private roads. Breakers and the Parkway, Watersound Parkway, is actually a private road.
Yeah, and I think
because St. Joe could elect to close that tomorrow if they chose to do it. So it's actually their road.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty common when we do these live shows for people to ask us about speed bumps and traffic lights and things like that.
Sure.
And depending on what road you're talking about, could be a state highway, could be a county highway.
That's why you'll hear different answers based on where your road, based on what the road is.
Different entities control that, so we don't install traffic lights.
Yeah.
Right. But depending on what road you're on,
and I want to make sure I didn't misunderstand her. If she was asking for the light. If the light, okay, she was talking about pavement. She was on the pavement. Okay, if it's on the pavement, it's on the private road. They have to do it. And they can do that tomorrow as long as it doesn't.
Yeah,
they can do it whenever they want to. On 98, that's different. DOT has to do it.
Yeah. Jason Cobb, you do an amazing job. Grateful to have you as sheriff.
Which I appreciate you, Counselor.
Judy Skinner, any hope of a traffic light at Thompson Road and Church Street turning left across 98 is deadly.
It is. I have a dream of it because I got to tell you, I 100% agree with you. So I don't quote me on that, Ms. Skinner, but I think they were actually doing a traffic survey on that recently, and maybe that's wishful thinking on my part, but I for some reason I think like I remember hearing that. I'll follow up and ask that question. I agree with you. The only problem is the close proximity to 393. That may be an issue, but that is a bad intersection trying to come out. There's enough people that live down Church Street that I think you need that light as well. So we will we'll make a note of that one and actually ask, so maybe we can respond back next week.
Yeah,
Lindsay, if you'll help me remember that.
Yeah, and again, FDOT has an extensive process for actually putting in a traffic light.
Yeah, sure.
So that is not influenced by us, but we can certainly.
Well, we can try and influence them. It's not from lack of try. It's not from lack of trying.
Yes. Sure. Andrew wants to know what your thoughts are on the daily influx of urban outdoorsmen coming across the Lake Powell Bridge into Walton County now that they have a walking path to use.
I'm probably ambivalent to that. And just if I'm being honest, I probably haven't noticed that urban outdoorsmen. Does that mean you mean like duck hunters or something? Fishers or fishermen or what? I haven't noticed the traffic myself as far as pedestrian traffic coming across that bridge, but it might be a little more specific and clear it up for me just in case I'm missing something with that. The traffic is madness, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Carolyn Hill is asking, and Lindsay, I don't know if you can help me with this. I can try to do it. She's saying that that our pinned post is hard to scroll by when it's live. When we're
you know what's
live.
amazing about that comment? I don't even know what a pinned post is.
Oh, that's why you had Lindsay and
That's
I.
exactly why I was.
Tim Brooks. All here, there is not enough deputies to patrol the roads, but when there is an accident, there's a large amount of officers on scene for hours. Where are these? And I replace officers with deputies because they're not the same. But where are these deputies before and after the wreck? Highway 81 ensure more areas could use deputies, may slow down these speeders, or maybe a dummy car.
Yeah, so we have to bring deputies from different areas when we manage, and you're saying 81, so just use that example.
Highway 81.
Highway 81. We have to pull people from other areas. So, for instance, if it's 81 and 20, we're pulling people from Freeport, Red Bay, that area, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's 81, say at a feeder road, the short answer is we have to bring them from 15, 20 miles away sometimes, out that far.
Yeah. And once that traffic crash is clear, they go back to their district. I was on another question from Tim. Why are people allowed to turn into the inside lane without being stopped? And I'm not sure if he's talking about making a left-hand turn. Right. You should always go in the closest lane.
Yeah, and that's the short answer to that.
The lane that you are in, you should stay in it until you've completed the turn.
Every time I ask these traffic, I have to try and shut my eyes and visualize where they're talking about. So.
Yolanda Decker. Hi, Yolanda.
Hello.
Do you think they'll ever put the light back at 331 in Rock Hill? It's very dangerous. Don't know why they took it out. And I think they took it out when they 4-laned it.
I think so, too. And I don't know the answer to that, but I wish there was a turning lane.
Was it a flashing light?
Yeah, it was a flashing.
It was a flashing
But
light,
I will tell you, that's another area that needs a turning lane into Rock Hill Road, because when traffic tries to turn, when northbound traffic on 331 tries to turn onto Rock Hill Road, man, that's they really need a turning lane there.
Because you're coming up a hill there.
Yeah, for sure.
Talk about Rock Hill.
Absolutely.
It literally is a hill.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not a great spot. Riley Peacock has a great question.
Come on.
Hello again, Sheriff. If you were the subject of a biopic, what famous actor would you choose to play you? Dang, that's a hard question. We've been talking about actors today, by the way.
Oof.
We talked about a lot of good ones.
Throw me
Who
with
would
that
play
one?
you?
That'd be throw. I don't know. They'd have to be fat and sassy, though.
And really like Starbucks coffee.
Yeah, right,
you know what? The actors that have
to
to force themselves to smoke when they play famous people. I don't know that I could do it, but I could drink some coffee now.
Yeah, that's a good question.
We'll have to let that sit a minute.
Give that a little bit of thought.
Yeah. Okay. And then Jolly on YouTube. His YouTube name is Jolly Pale Giant. I like it. I'm in. Good evening, Sheriff. What are some of the opportunities that are offered as a Walton County Sheriff's deputy compared to other counties and police departments?
So I think a couple things. One of the things we're pretty open with is our idea of a continuous personal growth. So I always say, listen, you could come to us and have a PhD, and that's great. However, we want people that want to continue to grow and learn professionally, whatever that capacity is in, whether that's specialty school or that's formal college classes or whatever. But the idea is that, listen, you may want to be an EMT. So because we're Walton County Fire Rescue as well, too, You may be a deputy that also wants to be an EMT. You may be a deputy that wants to be in SWAT. If you're coming from the law enforcement side, you may want to, they're throwing me off with the ladies are throwing giggling. Me. They're giggling over there about something. But anyway, no, I mean, I just think there's a bunch of different opportunities to move around, and obviously the traditional law enforcement stuff. If you're talking about just being just a deputy, but I think things like the leadership growth track, everything from the physical fitness incentives to professional continuing education, I think is a little bit different. I think our philosophy is a little bit different, quite frankly, than other places, and so we do some things that a lot of places. We do some things that a lot of places don't do.
Talk about your philosophy, though. It is a great philosophy.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, and I always say this as a joke, but I think it is kind of fun in a way. I said, a good police officer will solve crime, a good deputy sheriff should solve problems, and we empower our deputies on the law enforcement side to make decisions. They're the sheriff after 5. Make decisions, and we again empower them to do that. And I think philosophically that's an important way to do business. I don't know. So I find it kind of interesting, and we ask a lot. Listen, we still do mandatory physicals. We do mandatory mental health counseling.
We have a fitness test.
We have fitness tests every 6 months that you have to. So there's a lot of things that, remember, we're doing it for you, not to you, right? To try and help longevity and to retain people.
Not to mention that we have a wellness.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things
inside the agency that Lieutenant Wheatley has worked tremendously on.
For sure, and very well received, might I add.
Yeah.
Too. So I don't know. It's kind of a little bit of an overview. I mean, we have all the traditional law enforcement stuff for sure. But I think from an equipment, training, and philosophy, it's pretty unique.
Yeah. So we hope that answers your question. I would take a look, not to boast Lindsay and I, but take a look at our social media and just kind of get a feel for what's important to the agency. And we try to do that from a deputy's eyes, and what they encounter and like how they carry themselves. I don't know. I think that a lot of deputies would say it's a great place to work. So Lindsay and I got to go back to Andrew's question, because I got to tell you, I feel a little sheepish because I didn't understand what he meant. Okay.
That's what we were giggling about.
Oh.
So Andrew asked, what are your thoughts on the daily influx of urban outdoorsmen coming across the Lake Powell Bridge into Walton County? He's talking about homeless people.
Oh, I didn't
know that. I didn't know that was like the translation for it. So I'm not being coy. I haven't ever heard that.
Threw me. I was talking about like somebody fishing or duck hunt or something. I really hadn't.
Silly.
But in fairness to me, I couldn't see the question because I clearly would have just picked that up. I'm joking. No, I think that one of the things we try and do when we deal with homeless population is we try very hard to identify them and to offer them services and say, look, where can we go to help you try and get on your feet? But we're not going to the panhandling and loitering and things like that can become problematic, and so we want to stay on top of it. But it really starts with identifying the people. Who are you, so that we know who we're dealing with, so we know who's in the area, where they're at. The old-fashioned
field interview.
Yeah, the old-fashioned just getting out talking to somebody and knowing who we're dealing with. Remember, it's not illegal to be homeless, right? So you have to know that up front. But there's a lot of ancillary thing, like we don't want them camping on private property or staying in houses. We had an incident last year where a deputy found one in his home. And ended up deputy almost losing his, or investigator actually almost, firing around, fighting with this guy. So it can be dangerous. It's not just as simple as we're homeless. We've had problems in the past. Again, thefts and some of those things, all the stuff that goes with that. So yeah, we have to identify. We need to. I don't think we've received a lot. To be honest with you, I don't think we've received a lot of calls about that. But that's something we need to be watching for sure. Yeah. If that's stepped up because of that bridge.
And Lake Powell, I think, is Lieutenant Cheek.
Yes, Lieutenant Cheek is the district lieutenant for District 4. Right.
So if you have concerns about that or questions or any of that, certainly reach out to us and we can pass that along to him and make him aware. Stephanie Barnes. I hope I didn't skip one. No. Stephanie Barnes. If a criminal incident occurs within a city limits of Defuniak, who has the senior jurisdiction?
Yeah, it's not really a matter of senior jurisdiction. It's just we typically, when you call, if you're inside the city limits, we'll generally say, hey, look, call the city of Defuniak Springs, and we'll send a police officer, or the city of Defuniak Springs will send a police officer out. As always, if you say, no, I only want a deputy, we're never going to tell you can't have a deputy sheriff, right? You pay your taxes just like anything else, we'll have it. We just try to defer to the city first inside the city limits there, because that's their jurisdiction, and that's they're already there. But if you want a deputy, you just simply have to say, don't transfer me, I want a deputy sheriff.
And we are constantly assisting each other.
Yeah,
on calls.
So there's no, just that's really up to you as a citizen what you want. But just in general, when you get a call, the first thing they're going to do is transfer you to the jurisdiction, the closest jurisdiction to you, which in that case would be the city of Defuniak. Same thing if you're in Okaloosa County or Bay County. It's the way it's done everywhere. So
sure. A few people have given their inputs on this biopic. The first of which is The Rock.
That's what I'm talking about. Somebody's clearly needs a drug test, but I'm with you.
Robert Duvall.
That's old school. I like Robert Duvall.
John Travolta with a beard. I mean,
minus the Scientology, I'm in.
John Travolta is a Scientologist?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's the old alien things that throws me. You know what I'm saying?
I thought I knew Tom Cruise was, but I didn't know John Travolta went down that road.
But I'm down with that Saturday Night Fever. So.
Tiffany Hall, is the Liberty Fire Station the only station that is taking junior firefighters?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that we are starting a Fire Explorer program at Walton County Fire Rescue. I don't think we're at the point we're ready to take folks yet, but I will tell you we're about to roll out on a Fire Explorer. So we're kind of excited about that, but I'm not sure about that.
Somebody said Woody Harrelson. I can't.
Oh, man.
That's really one of the best questions that we've gotten in a long time. Yeah, I like Woody Harrelson. He's in some terrible movies, but he's in some great ones, too. Okay.
Could have been worse. Could have said like Nicolas Cage. He's like the world's worst actor.
Oh, bless his bones. I really like National Treasure, though. Okay. Don't judge me for that statement, by the way. All right, so we're caught up on questions, but I know there was a couple other things that we wanted to talk about that were important. We talked about the helicopter, and that's been since Christmas. We've had the donations. We talked about that. We actually had a really big case go to trial, and had a suspect sentenced to life in prison, Storm Thayer.
Yeah,
and that was a homicide from, I want to say it was 2019, 2020.
No, it was later than that. I think it was 2021. It was 2021.
Yeah.
He was sentenced to life in prison. No possibility of parole. Florida doesn't have parole, if you don't know that, by the way. So a lot of people, we hear people talk about their parole. Florida hasn't paroled anybody prior to 1983, what you call traditional parole. Appropriate sentence. We work very closely with Ms. Madden's office, and the main thing is to try and bring justice for the victim and the closure for the victim's family to the best of our ability to do that. Very sad case, and we're glad that at least there's some resolution for the families, because I think that matters a lot. We've spent the last 2 months, we've had 2 barricaded subjects in the last 2 months with involving firearms, both where a firearm was fired, one in Freeport, the other in Red Bay. And we were able to.
Oh, no, it wasn't Red Bay, was it? It was Defuniak.
No, it was Defuniak.
Yesterday, yes.
Yeah, but here's the important thing about that. We were able to take those people into custody without having to use deadly force. And anytime you're dealing with a barricaded subject who's armed, and in one case had already fired a weapon, actually both cases already fired a weapon, that just speaks to professionalism, training, and capability. I think it just shows people that's not the first thing we try and do. We do our best to try and de-escalate the situation, if you will. Unfortunately, in the last 6 months, we've had these barricaded subjects. We've had 2 shootouts, unfortunately. One where our deputies had to defend themselves and ended up in killing a suspect here in Miramar Beach, and then another, really a running gun battle over 2 counties back in June. So it's been a strange 6 months in that regard. Very professional on behalf of our folks. I'm very pleased with the way they have conducted themselves. Very proud of them.
Yeah. We have a couple questions that came in. Leslie said, thank you for offering homeless resources.
Sure.
David Aka said, thank you for what you guys do every day. Yeah. Then you got the Woody Harrelson comment, which I think is hilarious. And then Carolyn Hill said, 98 and Church Street needs to be addressed too.
We mentioned that. We talked about that.
Yep. And then Stephanie is asking Is there an internship offered to summer youth for the department's administration to motivate young people to work in those internal positions? And let me just tell you, you talk about keeping the ship sailing, records, finance, like some of the
absolutely.
IT, like there really are
move things around.
Yeah,
listen,
for sure.
You would be shocked what the, just the amount of paperwork that's generated, the amount of public records requests. It is staggering what people ask for. And I know you find this hard to believe, but sometimes the public wants immediate response to something that is really complex, or a lot of redaction, a lot of making sure we don't release somebody's personal information. But those folks do a lot. But to her question.
Internships.
We have not run internships for those under 18 at this age because there is some privacy concerns and appropriateness of what they're being surrounded with. We've just started some college internships that we're trying to do. I do think that as these folks get over 18, there's an opportunity exists. Maybe it used to be the old DCT program, which was the job training, half-a-day school, those kind of things. I think that's something we can certainly start looking toward trying to do. We're not set up for that yet, but we've got to be able to manage that. But I don't think that's a bad idea at all, quite honestly.
And Stephanie, just to kind of pitch something to you, not throwing Deputy Kendrick under the bus by any means, no pun intended, because she's a school resource deputy, but she's starting an Explorers program.
Yeah.
And they've got that sort of going now, and I'd be happy to put that link in the chat here. And that might be something fun for someone to do.
Yeah, and I think as our fire explorers get up, that's another opportunity as well. But to her point, I think specifically about administrative type jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to explore that. We haven't done that, but maybe that's an opportunity for some local folks.
Yeah. Amanda Pacheco wants to know how much longer for the construction from Mac Bayou to 30A. Man, do I wish we had an answer to that. Do I wish we controlled that?
Wish I had some say in that. I have no idea.
You know what I will say, though? And this is probably going to be controversial.
Do tell.
But I am constantly driving 331 and thinking, man, I remember when this was 2 lanes.
Sure.
And it felt like it took so long, but in actuality, it really didn't, and you don't even remember it anymore.
Well, listen, I always tell people it's just like the bridge.
Yeah.
I think people forget the controversy that was that bridge. I mean, there are people now that I see every day that they talk about how they love that bridge that hammered me up one side down the other for suggesting that we needed that bridge. I'm impatient too, and I have to drive this road 98, and I know how bad that traffic is, and it seems like it's permanent. The truth is, it needs to be 4 lane, 6 lane, all the way through the county. Bottom line, it needs to be done. So I hate to say it, but I think when they're done there, I hope they start again. And just keep going because it needs to be done.
Yeah. Riley, the one who asked about the biopic, said that he forgot to tell you that Ryan Gosling's taken, so you can't have him.
Got good hair though, huh?
Man, Ryan's got more than good hair. If I don't say so myself. Okay, so we're caught up there.
Awesome.
And then we want to mention a couple of things.
Okay.
I know that Tyler Noble in our recruitment would be, he would call me remiss if I would miss out on the opportunity to say that we have, speaking of internal positions, a lot of civilian positions right now that we need to hire for.
Yeah, we do. And if you go to waltonso.org, you'll see...
he got the website right, Lindsay.
I am just bad. I got the email and the website right. If you go to waltonso.org and look under employment, you'll see what job opportunities there are at the sheriff's office. Understand, I was telling somebody with the Board of County Commissioners, I think people are tired of hearing us say we need to hire people, but guess what? We need to hire people. So we are absolutely looking. And I'll go back to the previous statement about the internship with the admin. It's a great idea because it's so expensive to live in this county that we're struggling getting people to move here because they got to find places to live. Things have gotten out of hand. That's not news to anybody here. So yeah, if we could get more people locally, the better it is for sure. We're still offering hiring bonuses for people coming from out of state or that are pre-certified in a safety-sensitive position. So yeah, we're absolutely looking for people for sure. Yeah. Best and brightest. We're not going to lower our standards though, right? We're not going to lower the standards just because we need people. Better to work short than have the wrong people. So
sure. We keep getting a couple questions about traffic lights and that sort of thing. Crystal, we did answer the question about 331 in Rock Hill, and the answer is We don't know why the light didn't go back in, but that's a DOT road.
It's a DOT road, absolutely.
So
correct.
they would be the one to determine when and if that light goes back in there. I can certainly.
And we still want the turning lane there. We can't. We think
sure.
there should be a turning lane there. So.
Yeah, sure. Yolanda Decker said she remembers the 331 bridge before they 4-laned it, and it was very dangerous.
Yes, it was.
Larry Mitchell said, "What about 331 from Defuniak to Paxton?" Retweet. Drove that road the other day.
100%.
They need to 4-lane that.
Can't agree and can't agree anymore.
Sure.
You know.
And then somebody else said, Steve Frank said Woody Harrelson with a beard. That's the second one. I don't know if I can see that.
I feel that, but I'm down with it. I love Zombieland. I told you.
Sandy Dooley, is there a security guard going to be at the new park on 331 and Bay Grove Road to keep the homeless on Bay Grove safe? Or to the homes, on Bay Grove safe. Sorry, her word is split up there. To keep the homes on Bay. She's asking if there's going to be a security guard there at the park.
No, I'm not familiar with any plans by the county to put a security guard there, and they haven't approached us about that. I will say that one of the things we're trying to do is really step up the use of some cameras in most places that are automated, so to let us know if people come into the park when they're not supposed to be there. That's a kind of an opportunity to be a little better from that standpoint as well. And I would ask the public this question. So you guys that are listening or on tonight, one question that we're talking about is, it's really challenging with our SRDs in the afternoon getting people out of schools, and so even out of the parking lot. So we're looking at maybe starting you used to call them crossing guards. We'll call it a crossing guard program, and we would be looking folks that are primarily retired. This would be a part-time kind of position, because what happens in the afternoon, it doesn't matter if you're at Dune Lake or you're at Walton High School or if you're at Paxton. A lot of times it's getting people out of the parking lot and out of the feeder roads that sometimes are issuing, or that's a little bit the issue. So I'm thinking that there is a place for a crossing guard program, even if it's not the traditional across that roadway. But I'd be curious to see what you guys think. If you think there's some interest in that would be a positive thing. I may sit down and talk to Mr. Hughes about it and see what his thoughts are. I'm prepared to kind of help fund that out of some crime prevention funds, because I think there is a value in getting these vehicles safely out of the school parking lots and on across the road and into the roadway, because we don't always have enough. There's not enough SRDs to go do that at every school, right? And the other thing is, I will tell you, the Walton County School District and Mr. Hughes specifically, I called him, and we are talking about trying to do something with some bus stops that I think is a pretty cool project. I'm waiting for it to roll out, but I just really want to take a moment to thank our partners at Walton County School District for just really being open to try something new. I called Mr. Hughes and said, hey, look, how do you feel about this? We'd like to try and help maybe build some permanent bus stop structures. And hopefully in a couple months we're going to start rolling some of those out, but just appreciate their willingness to sit down and say, look, let's see if we can do something, make it better. Good partners.
But Sandy, as far as the county parks enforcing a security guard, the county would probably be someone to either approach us or to hire them on their own.
No, I'll disagree just a little bit. If that's something you guys are wanting at a particular park, I think probably what you would want to know is let your commissioner know that you want that. They can reach out to us and decide whether or not they want us to do that. And, whether that's 20, again, anytime you talk about hiring somebody, is that 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, 24 hours a day? What does that look like? There has to be some community interest in doing it. And then if there is, and your commissioner that was Grady Brown she was talking about?
I believe Bay Grove Road and 331.
Sure. So Grady Brown Park. So that your commissioner for there is, I'm about to blank out real quick, Boots McCormick. So if you can ask Commissioner McCormick, and just let his office know if you have that interest. We've done that in the past for parks with lifeguards and things like that in Red Bay. We did it down at Morrison Springs Park. So we have done things similar to that. And so it really just depends on what your level of interest is.
Yeah. Rich Foster, Sheriff, thank you and your staff for your service. Do you ever question What a warped world we live in when the media makes a football player that makes a huge salary and has a heart attack on the field seems so much more important than an Okaloosa or any law enforcement officer that works for low pay and risk their lives to protect our communities.
Oh, yes, some days. I was going to give you some other answer, but yeah, I think so. Some days I really, I understand what I signed up for, and I understand our folks understand what they signed up for. I think we're blessed that we live in a community in Okaloosa and Walton County and Bay County, our surroundings, where they are supportive of their first responders. This is a great place to be a first responder, a public safety professional, because I think we have some really strong support here. So I feel worse for the people that are in Chicago, that are in Washington State, or that are in some of New Jersey, New York, and that's no disrespect to those states, but I just will tell you, you would be hard pressed to find a better community in the United States to serve than these surrounding counties.
Yeah, agree.
So
100%.
But yeah, I question it some days too. For sure.
I'd like to say nothing surprises me anymore, but there's always an off chance.
Yeah,
and then I'm trying to get through some of these. Did you already mention Church Street and 98? Yeah, just again, a lot of those traffic signals are going to be controlled by FDOT, whether they're there, whether they're installed, whether
any of them entering onto a state highway is FDOT.
Donna McLaren, I want to thank you all for what you do for your inmates. They can get certified in a job to do when they get out. I wish other counties would do this too. That is on my list to talk about, Donna.
Yeah, so they had we had a residential drug treatment program that just graduated. So we had a good turnout with those folks. We just had a welding graduation recently, and we're about to roll out our first graduate of our commercial driving program. So all those are positive things.
Yeah, we had our first CDL graduate this week. How cool is that? And I'm getting ready to feature him on social. Sure. He was so proud. His mom was so proud. He was released the day he passed with his license.
Yep.
So that was a super cool thing for him.
Absolutely.
Your captain, Robert Gray, said he wants Bradley Cooper to play you with a beard.
Robert is trying to get promoted.
I think he's trying to get a raise or something.
Yeah, he's trying to go for it.
Okay.
But I love that about you, Robert.
Great. So I think that's all our questions. Carolyn Hill said, a human being will not work standing on 331 to get cars and kids out.
I don't think I was suggesting that, so I want to be clear. That was not what my point, and again, I maybe a little clearer about this. A lot of it has to do with deputies need to stand in the highways, not school staff or even a crossing guard. This is primarily to get those folks turned out of larger parking lots and things of that nature. So like in Dune Lakes, I'll use that for example. You have to turn down 2 side roads to get there. So that takes a couple of teachers. Sometimes they're assisting in the afternoon. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we don't want to put somebody at harm's way, but there's a time and a place for a crossing guard. So not every location, but some. Not every location, some. Mossy Head's a great example, by the way. You could use somebody to turn out of the school into the feeder road, and then the deputy would be up on Highway 90, right?
Sure, yeah.
But those two, but a crossing guard would be a big help getting people out of that school in the afternoon.
Yeah, for sure. Laura Lee Sparks is asking, where are we with the FSU study on the results from all these programs?
It's a longitudinal study over 3 years. So they were actually here, I think, last month, a little before Christmas.
They wrote us a really nice email.
Yeah, they really did. We're super pleased to say that we're one of the few, actually one of the only jail in the United States doing what we're doing. So we're pretty proud of what the work, and we'll just see the efficacy of it remains to be seen long term. But you got to continue trying and see what works.
Yeah. So. Tim is asking, when DCF and sheriff come into the home and find no fault, why will no one contact the parents? They will just go away but never come back with the kids or parents. So, I don't know if I'm understanding this. So when DCF and the sheriff come into the home and find no fault, they just go away. Tim, you'll have to be more specific. If you want to email us about a specific incident,
so we can.
I encourage you to do that.
Exactly what we're.
Laura Lee Sparks is asking, what's the name of the nonprofit we're partnering with for re-entry for inmates? We actually have a re-entry specialist that we hired that works at our jail now.
Correct.
And we are looking into partnering with one out of Okaloosa County.
Yeah.
But that's not officially.
Yeah, we're working.
We haven't inked it yet, but we already have somebody on staff to start that. And I'll tell you, we reached out and had some really good conversation with service provider Big Bend Cares of Northwest Florida, and they've come over and met with us and talking about doing a long-term transition specialist to complement what we already have. So I'm kind of excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, and I think I know what she's referring to with just like the jail programs and stuff like that. I'm trying to remember what that resources meeting was. And Laura,
It's after the RSAT program.
Yeah.
They help them, and I'm trying to figure out the name. Once I figure out the name.
Yeah, we'll comment on here, Laura, and reply to your post and let you know what the name of the nonprofit is. Jason Fortin, with everything going on in our nation with the violence and shootings, is our Walton County law enforcement being trained to be proactive or reactive if a situation was to occur? Also, what advice do you have to offer if someone was present in one of these situations, not as a law enforcement officer?
So that's a big term when you talk about one of these situations, right? I'm going to assume you're talking about
this is a great question relating to something we were discussing earlier: military versus law enforcement training.
Yeah, so and we said this a lot because we get a lot of people say, well, you should train like the military, but the balance is what you have is what's called high risk but low frequency, right? So it doesn't happen every day. However, you have an obligation to be trained to manage that. It doesn't matter if it happens once every other day or once a year. I mean, all these things are still our responsibility to be prepared for. I think we're well prepared, but I got to be blunt with you. A lot of that has to do with the size of the situation. You know, we're currently working with a kind of a multi-county approach to a field force team. You know, if you had large scale disruption, again, this county is not, these surrounding counties not really. They're very supportive of their law enforcement, so we see less and less of that. As far as high risk incidences, I mean, I think we've had a pretty good track record of the way we've managed that. If you look at our barricaded subjects, if you look at our officer involved shootings, we've done. You know, you hate to say you've done well, but at the end of the day, when everybody goes home and the bad guy goes to jail, and our folks or citizens are not hurt, then I say we've done a pretty good job. But we don't teach anything to be reactive. You want to teach people to be prepared, but at the same time, you can't go to every car with your hand on a gun and a flashlight over your head. There's a balance when you work in a community. We accept a modicum of risk. That's unfortunately part of the business we're in delivery of service. It's kind of like I was telling the PIOs earlier. You know, a lot of people don't realize that when we stop a car, we have no idea who's in the car. None. And people always say, well, I didn't have a traffic ticket, or I've done this, or I've never had a problem. That may be all well and true. We just simply don't know that, and so we have to balance that. We can't drag everybody out of the car at gunpoint, because we're going to be dealing with the public, but you also have to be ready. Our 2 officer-involved shootings, if you look, the shooting in Miramar, just instantaneous reaction from the deputies, were able to neutralize that threat. And the truth of the matter is, they could not have responded any faster, any better, any more professionally. Period. Nothing they could have done any better than what they did. No SWAT team, no whatever police department, whatever military, whatever it is. But they have to treat that person like a suspect, not like an enemy combatant. And there are different rules of engagement. Same thing with the shooting, multi-agency shooting back in June. We don't have the option of just spraying a car with bullets. We're accountable for every round we put down range, right? So a lot of challenges to that. So it's a constant training. It's a constant balance in the way we do things. But, we're going to stay at it and continue to try and always be better and protect our folks. And, again, be cognizant of your rights as well. Hopefully that's not too long-winded, but it's a complex subject, right? The second part of that is, what do you do if you find yourself in that situation? I know this is maybe not what you want to hear, but I would say leave. Immediately leave the area. One of the things we struggle with now, and Corey and I had this discussion last week, is for me, it's hard to understand the desire to stand around and film and
or drive by and take pictures.
Drive by, it's maddening to me their desire to get a comment on Facebook or whatever. And listen, we're on Facebook now, so I understand the power of social media. But we dealt with an issue a couple of weeks ago with a suicide. We typically, as a rule, as an organization, we do not comment on suicides. However, we were kind of forced to because people were taking pictures and putting it up. And
mistaking it for a traffic crash.
Or even those that weren't mistaking it. The problem is then that family has to see that on TV. And so it forced us to comment and say, hey, please. And we said, why do you comment on a suicide? So because we're trying to stop people from putting a video out on this suicide.
And misinformation in general.
It's a difficult, anytime you're in one of those situations, I hate to say it, but the best thing you can do is try to get out of there as quickly as you can, or get out of the way as fast as you can. Because, listen, do our best to protect the surrounding public, but if rounds are flying, things can go wrong. Or vehicles are flying, things can go wrong. That's also something else the deputy or the firefighter, whoever the situation, they have to worry about your safety as well, too, which makes it much more complicated.
And Deputy Bennett and I have had this conversation. I think he'd be happy that I brought this up. Sometimes people don't realize that they're putting themselves in a dangerous situation. Right. He's been on multiple traffic stops where people will walk between his patrol car and the car they pulled over. Sure. Or walk up to him to ask him questions. I think it's something they don't realize, that it diverts his attention. It diverts his or her attention. The deputy and that can be deadly for a deputy. They have to stop and talk to you. Well, I just wanted directions over there, or I just want to know what's going on. It becomes extremely difficult to manage split your attention like that. Sure. Just trying to get Bob and Sharon Parks is asking if we can get a car to patrol and stop speeding on Walton Road. Is that city limits or is that us?
Yeah, but that's okay. We can be back in there.
Yeah, I am on I have Chief Hurley's personal cell phone number, and he has to call me regularly. I have to call him regularly, so I'll reach out to him too. Ollie Walker said they want to clarify the traffic light on 98 that I mentioned needs a left turn addition is located at the entrance to and from Watersound Origins and the intersection of Watersound Parkway, but still is actually on 98. That's under the control
100% DOT,
of DOT.
Yes, absolutely 100% DOT.
Yep. St. Joe owns the road that
feeds into
right. 98. Right. Yes. Rich Foster says the Montgomery, Alabama Municipal Jail has some similar programs for over 25 years. They called it inmate enrichment. The inmates have been serious about, they have to be serious and have a desire to improve. Sure. And there's, give credit to the people at the jail who champion these programs. There's a vetting process.
Absolutely.
There's a long vetting process.
Listen,
for those
we were going to graduate about 6 commercial drivers last year in our first route, and all of them tested positive for meth. That was, that they tried to sneak in through the landfill. So we do the best we can, but to all those folks that individually would have gotten an education that would have cost $6,000, $7,000 in the public world, they blew it, and we couldn't use them because of that. So it's a challenge. We try to find the right people, give them opportunities, but at the end of the day, they have to have some personal accountability as well. So
sure. Another YouTube question, any advice for the academy? Someone about to go to the academy.
Yeah, I think, so I was telling somebody that I think the most important thing you can have when you go to this academy is a willingness to learn and an open mind. And then really try and understand what it is you're wanting to do if you become a police officer, a deputy sheriff, whatever situation may be, and understand it's about dealing with people and communication. That's number one. That's the best thing you can do is learn how to communicate and deal. I often tell people, if you pushed me, I would say if I wanted you to do anything, anything that works with the public gives you an advantage because you're learning how to deal and address people. So yeah, I think those are good ways to start. Ride-alongs are always good too. Always.
I think just like working at a restaurant.
Retail. If you're working if you're a waitress or you're a waiter, somebody that works in public service that has to deal with unreasonable people with unreasonable demands, So.
Yeah.
We don't do it. People always talk about body cams. I think people would be shocked if we release some of the body cams of the way people conduct themselves. I'm not talking about necessarily criminal cases. People would they wouldn't believe the way some of these folks act when they're being when they're being encountering with law enforcement.
Yeah. Some of the interactions are
the stuff of legend.
Yeah.
The stuff of legend. How about that?
Mary Gold wants to know, can a speed checker be put on Sunrise Road? So she's got rumble strips in front of her house, and the rumble strips are a nuisance because when people speed and go over them, it causes her houses and her windows to rattle. That's interesting. I know where she's talking about, and the rumble strips. They've got some on Black Creek Road and Freeport too, right before you get to the intersection at 20.
Yeah, I would just make sure your district lieutenant knows about it. Your district lieutenant, she is at James Pittman, and so I'll have Lieutenant Pittman kind of reach out maybe through and see about trying to do something there.
Deborah Lee McCormick says, big shout out to your SRO at Freeport Elementary School that jumped my truck. I was in the pickup line and he had me out of there before people got mad. See, that's what I'm talking about.
People get mad.
People get mad about like what?
How dare your vehicle break down?
Control that?
Yeah, how dare you break down? Yeah,
Deborah,
sure.
he's fantastic. All of our SROs are just fantastic. We get compliments regularly about them. That's a tough job. I mean, despite John Wren Sr.
Okay.
My eyes are failing me.
Yeah.
You and your officers do a great job protecting us. I think Jackie Gleason from the old Bandit series with Burt Reynolds would have been a great biopic.
An El Diablo sandwich and a Dr. Pepper.
Oh my gosh.
I've seen it once or twice.
And then, sorry, I'm trying to scroll past some of the back and forth here. And then Corey Godwin, hello. Please share a bit about your experience as an adjunct professor for FSU and what you're learning from your students. We had some good conversation today.
Yeah, so one of the things I've found that I really enjoy is that it allows us to really see what the next generation of professionals in our communities, what they think, what is important to them. Because, by the way, at 52, what I think is not the same thing at 22, right? And it's important to know how they view and how they think about public safety, big incidents, things of that nature. And listen, I'll tell you, I have found there is what you hear on the news every night, that nobody likes their country and everybody wants to do away with free speech. And in my experience talking with these kids, it looks a little fundamentally different, quite honestly. They're not nearly as radical, air quotes, as you hear on TV. Now, again, I'm a small sampling, right? But I do think it's interesting. And there are things, by the way, that they see fundamentally different than I see, which is okay. But it also tries to help us with recruitment and retention, finding people who have an interest in this profession and make sure they have an accurate understanding of what this profession is about. It is a challenging time, but I like the idea of being in an open dialogue with that next generation of, quite frankly, taxpayers, of people that are going to be my boss. So it's important to hear that from all sides of the community.
And I think it's cool too when you can be a professor, but still you're still learning.
Sure, too. Lifetime learner.
Yeah,
I think it's super important to be a lifetime learner.
Yeah. That's a great question. We were just talking about that earlier. Rich Foster, I've seen many good, amazing things involving law enforcement officers over the years, but one of the most touching things was when the Walton County deputy found the message in a bottle about a deceased family member on the beach and sent it out on a fishing boat as the author requested. Sheriff, your PR team should be commended for getting that story out. That was Paula Pendleton.
Right.
And she found the bottle on the beach, and so they continue that relationship today. She ended up getting in touch with the person who wrote the letter, whose father passed away. Sure. And they went on the Kelly Clarkson show in Los Angeles. Yeah. Paula Pendleton surprised her on that show. And
Paula wins. She retired, so she beat it.
She wins the day. Yeah. But I just want to talk about this a little bit, because sometimes it's hard to, as a PIO, to measure success really. And for two reasons, one of which is big picture, we're trying to save people and get the right information to the right people. But the other side of that is, I didn't write that story. Paula did.
Sure.
I mean, I wrote it.
Sure.
But she did it.
It's her story. Right?
Yeah, it's her story. And I think that just speaks to our deputies and absolutely. The quality of employees that we have, because I'm just transferring the information.
And by the way, it's also about what you as the public think is important as opposed to what we do. It's what we necessarily. So Corey and Lindsay, when they're looking at whether they're looking at some of the animal shelter or whether it's fire rescue or the jail or the law enforcement side, what I think you're interested in is just quite frankly not necessarily what you're interested in. It's just not. We talk about before we come on the show. We say, well, what kind of things do you think we'll be asked about? I'll tell you, you didn't ask about 5 of them, right off the top, right? And stuff that we thought was be of more interest to you, but that's okay. That's why we do this, so that we can kind of like talking to my students. It's about learning about what you have an interest in, and then making sure that we give you what it is that you're wanting. Yeah. But it's not osmosis. We don't know that sometimes. I mean, truly what we think, or, probably more me than these ladies, just disconnect. So if you don't know this, a lot of people get surprised. I'm not on social media. I mean, I just don't pay attention to it. I don't know. I'm not.
You just like the puppy videos.
Yeah, I listen. I like Instagram. I look at the dog pictures or a cat video or something, whatever. And so I was trying to explain somebody that was really upset about someone, diminishing them in social media. And I've said this to my wife before. Really? So, how would you feel if they were talking about me in Chinese? Well, it wouldn't bother me because I didn't know. I said, well, then I don't know because I don't pay attention to it. Because I think it's that important, right? So I'm not always the most up to date with what's of great public interest. I just try and do what I think is the right thing to do. Try to be professional and try and do things I think matter in the community. But I am literally always behind about what the hot button local issue is, and a lot of times even the national issues. I don't do that, And
listen, and sometimes we as Lindsay and I try to keep like a pulse on what's going on in the community and like what you guys are like feeling and listen. Sometimes we're wrong.
Yeah, we're all do that. So we like this feedback from you.
Literally 3 things that we thought were going to get brought up nobody's even mentioned it.
And that's okay. That's part of it too, And so this is a good correction for us every couple of weeks. And I always said to somebody, you can say that. What you can't say is that we don't make ourselves available. We try very hard to be available. And this is just a good chance to try and make sure that we're giving you what it is that you want.
Okay.
So,
our next question, we've actually received 100 comments.
Bam.
And Restream is telling us congratulations. TK Bradley, I have a neighbor that is constantly having the sheriff's office called on them. This person quite often cusses at the deputies, called on them. I'm quite certain that if I were to do this, I would probably be arrested. This person's mentally unstable, however. The deputies let her slide with the blatant disrespect. We collectively, as a neighborhood, are concerned for our safety.
Sure. So that's actually a really good point. So your deputies are trained in what's called crisis intervention training, which is to how to kind of mitigate the risk and in dealing with people that are extremely having emotional distress and or mental health conditions, right? And so one of the things I think is always surprising to people, what you just said is also very surprising. Deputies don't arrest people or should not be arresting people for being disrespectful or for cussing at them or things of that nature, right? So we balance that. If you're in your home and you may not like us, whatever, but you have a constitutional right to be disrespectful. That's just the truth. Doesn't matter whether I like that or anybody else likes it. So we have to balance that with what is it they're actually doing. Just like a noise complaint, a deputy can't be the victim of noise complaint. A deputy's peace cannot be disturbed. The deputy just has to take it, and that's part of it. But if you cross that line and you create an offense or you don't follow these, commands when they have the authority to do it, that becomes different. Then we can take action. Now, but go back to your central point about worrying about that person in your neighborhood. Not on Facebook Live, but if you'll shoot us an email, who that is, I will have somebody follow up with that and reach out to you, and let's figure out what's going on in your community. Listen, we deal with people that have these they come to county commission meetings, they go to city council meetings, they go to public events. We deal with this stuff a lot. So if you'll just reach out and email us, let us know who it is and what neighborhood, then I'll have somebody follow up and see what's actually going on there, a supervisor.
Yeah. And that's, it's got to be tough too. The mental illness thing is a real issue.
Sure.
And unfortunately, sometimes jail isn't going to solve that problem. It's not the best place for them. So
but yeah, absolutely true. But unfortunately, sometimes that's the only mechanism we have. And it's sad as that is.
Sure. I think we're caught up on questions.
Awesome.
For the most part. And then the only other things that we wanted to mention, we talked about, we're hiring people that are really unique positions, I think, in the sheriff's office. We've got them posted on our website.
Right.
And then Walton County Fire Rescue is doing something really cool this week and next, Lindsay, right?
For the next several weeks.
For the next several weeks. They're teaching kids in high school CPR. And those are seniors and juniors. They're at freshmen and juniors. Freshmen and juniors? Wow. They're hitting them every other year. This week they did Walton High School, and they'll be moving to the other high schools. Talk about, when you talk about CPR, and I know it's a sore subject. Rich mentioned this earlier about the football player who literally dropped on the field, but right. CPR saved his life. I mean, CPR saved his life, no question. And we actually have a new CPR device that is in all of our ambulances now. So we take it seriously.
Absolutely.
Saves lives. What are your thoughts?
I think you have the best emergency medical fire rescue service in the state of Florida. And that's not just me saying it. I think that's, if you'll look, that's what the state of Florida Department of Health just said. We're proud of the men and women of Walton County Fire Rescue and the job that they do to really just we try to give them the best equipment, the best training, the best opportunity to be successful, because any one of us can ride in that ambulance, right? And I think that's an important thing to know, that we're constantly seeking to improve. We're running 7 ambulances north of the Bay now. We've got an 8th that is going part-time. We ultimately want to, that to be a full-time ambulance too, because we think that's important. And I'm in a weird position as sheriff, and I always said this funny. Somebody said, well, how much is that going to cost to run an ambulance? And I said, well, listen to me when I say I don't care, right? Because you need that ambulance. You're not going to ask me where it is. It's an appropriate use of taxpayer money to put ambulances on the road. Those are what you expect government to do, right? Those are things that change lives and save lives, and I think it's terribly important to try and get the best trained equipment in your medical providers, your fire rescue providers that you can possibly get. And so we try hard to get that to you. That's our first question is, can we provide this service better? Will it save somebody's life? And if the answer to that is yes, we're going to get it done.
Yeah. And that's been your philosophy for a lot of
years.
From
day one. Nobody should be surprised by that. So.
Yeah. Okay, so at current time, it's 6:40. Do you know where your kids are?
Yes.
Was that at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock?
Street lights are on, be home.
Yeah.
Street lights are on, be home.
Do you want to wrap us up and talk about when we'll be back?
I think we covered a lot of stuff today. Just trying to catch up because it had been a little more than a month. We're going to try and be back as usual twice a month, every couple of weeks. We're now in January, so we'll probably about mid-February be back and getting that'll be getting that tie into spring break. We'll be getting ready and we're formulating our plans for that. Look forward to doing that and. If there's something we didn't answer today, just shoot us an email. Let us know. We'll try and get you an answer. And, again, glad for the opportunity to serve. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Lindsay, anything from your world? Mr. Bridnia?
Nope.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Thanks.